This sun lights your firemen, the pilot lights out.
This football team is coming into our place. We're standing in our way.
This is a game of the heart. Focus and finish.
It is Thursday in week 7, and the viewer Twitter questions are building up, so we're going to dedicate this segment to answering some of these things. Alright, now let's get right to it. At What's His Name asks, Mike, what are your thoughts on Tavon Austin? Well, look, here's a guy who has just 12 catches for 71 yards the past 4 games, and he had just 1 catch for 3 yards last week on just 1 target. He's owned in over 77% of leagues, I guess because he was the number 8 pick in the draft. But here's the way I look at it. Sam Bradford threw completions to 9 different receivers last week, and Austin clearly isn't a go-to guy. He's hard to use in the red zone because of his size, and until you see that the Rams have figured out a way to use him, he's not really even rosterable. At Freebird1 says, you recommended Harry Douglas as a waiver wire pickup. Can you please expand upon that thought? Well, I like Douglas in PPR leagues. The Falcons throw the ball on over 70% of their plays, and Douglas is a veteran backup who's been able to build a rapport with Matt Ryan over the years. There's no reason that Ryan shouldn't have confidence in him. He has a tough time in the red zone, so I'm not certain about using him in standard leagues, but in PPR leagues, I think he can put up some nice numbers. At Tony14 wants to know what I make of RGIII from what I've seen so far. Clearly, I think you're going to see him start running more as he becomes more comfortable back there and thinking less about his knee. Now, he had 77 yards last week on the ground, and that's a great sign. The fact that teams will have to honor his legs more will help him in the passing game, because whenever a quarterback threatens the line of scrimmage, it makes it tough on defenders. Unfortunately, he doesn't really have a game breaker on offense to help him out. But if you're asking me if he'll be better going forward than he's had in his slow start, I think the answer clearly is yes. At Gary Bush asks, now that Miles Austin is healthy, would you plug him back in? Well, I think he'll be fine. He played in 35 snaps against that Indian team last week, and he should be less tentative with each passing week. The problem is that when Terrence Williams filled in for him, Williams' performance kind of made Austin expendable. So you can expect Austin Williams to split time in 2 wide sets opposite Dez Bryant, reducing his target opportunities quite a bit. At Mayonnaise writes, that's cute, you seem to be so high on Justin Blackmon. Why? The Jaguars are awful. Well, in fantasy, we don't care who wins or loses the game. I don't care if the Jags go 0-16. I still want Blackmon on my fantasy team. What's not to like? The guy comes back from a 4-game suspension to start the season, and he has 19 receptions for 326 yards and 2 touchdowns in his first 2 games. This week, Cecil Shorts is out, and he's going to be a target machine. At Geriatric, his Twitter names are cute, wants to know if I'd pick up Josh Freeman. I do think he'll be better than what the Vikings had. If you're looking for a quarterback, I could see him being worth a flyer. But in my eyes, he's more of a fantasy help to the other skill players on the Minnesota offense. I think Greg Jennings, Kyle Rudolph, and Jerome Simpson all get a bit of a boost here. I even think his presence will help all day a bit to get him back on track. And keep an eye on over the next 2 weeks to see on who Freeman becomes most comfortable with. I have a feeling that one of those 3 pass catchers may end up becoming very fantasy relevant in the second half of the season. At Hometown Hero says, Le'Veon Bell ran 16 times for just 34 yards last week. Are you still high on him? Well, if you recall, I suggested not playing him last week. There aren't many running backs I would play against the Jets defense. They're very tough to run on. I think he'll be fine, and his ability to contribute in the passing game as a rookie is a huge plus because he doesn't have to be taken off the field in 3rd and long situations, which give him the opportunity for receptions as well. At Walter88 writes, I haven't heard much about Jacoby Jones. What are your thoughts on him? Well, don't forget he had a sprained MCL. Now, he only played in 20 of the Ravens' 70 snaps last week, but was 2 for 2 on his targets for 42 yards and a touchdown. I think he'll work his way back fine, and I'd expect a very good second half from him. I'd go pick him up. At Kenny Smith 9 wants to know my thoughts on Russell Wilson. Look, he's clearly a very good NFL quarterback, but to me, he's a better game manager than he is a fantasy quarterback, and the fact that he plays on a team with such a good defense often helps Seattle's offense succeed. Wilson has regressed statistically in his sophomore season, as teams now have quite a bit of film on him, and he's currently the 13th ranked quarterback in terms of fantasy points. Now, just to put things into perspective, Sam Bradford has 10 more fantasy points on the season than Wilson does. Wilson is owned in 98.4% of leagues, Bradford just 27.6%. Now, if you have a question you want answered here on the show, hit me up with a tweet. If I don't use your question, I'll tweet you back with my best advice. And be sure to tune into the Roto Experts Fantasy Football News Notes and Analysis segment every weekday. I'll be here to keep you current and ahead of the competition, and on weekends, come back for This Week in Fantasy Football, as I team up with the King, Scott Engel, covering the week that was, the week that will be, answering your viewer questions. Seattle and Arizona tonight, and I think this one will be a better game than most think. Seattle isn't nearly the same team on the road, although I do hear their defense is making the trip. For Roto Experts, I'm Mike Cardano.